Listening in the morning, and my music all day, 98.7 Coast WCZ2.
It is Tuesday. We are here with Dr. Bob Oliveri, continuing with the series on the 9 hidden secrets why you might not be able to lose weight. Hello, Dr. Bob. How are you today?
Good morning. How are you, Phil?
I'm fine, thanks. And you're all well. Of course, you were not here over the Labor Day holiday, but we're back again for we're wrapping up the series very shortly, right?
We are. This is the last of the 9-part series on the 9 hidden secrets why you can't lose weight. And today we're going to be talking about the cellular structures and the fat loss connection.
All right. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about this because, you know, through the initial 8-part series, we were talking about all the things that can interfere with weight loss, such as blood sugar levels and cortisol levels and gut function and hormones. And you have to clear all of those things up before you can get to the nitty-gritty of why the cells themselves are not working. Because all those other things can interfere with what's actually going on within a cell. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about the structure of cells and, more importantly, what the cells do to actually help us produce energy. So if you don't clear up all of those other types of things like blood sugar issues and things, the cells are just never going to work properly to begin with. So one of the biggest things that we're going to try to do today is we're going to talk about the biology, the actual what the cell is, the cell structure is, and the most important structures of why it's so important to address this in weight loss. Basically, we all remember high school biology, right? Where we start to talk about the inside of a cell. We'll talk about a nucleus, and we'll talk about DNA, and we'll talk about, you know, fancy words like endoplasmic reticulum and Golgi apparatus. But that's all in the inside of the cells. But the most important portions that we want to talk about today is a thing called mitochondria, which are really the powerhouses of the cells.
I've heard of that. I remember that from school.
And it's what produces what we call ATP. Mm-hmm. And ATP produces all of our energy in our body. So without ATP, we don't even exist. We don't have any energy whatsoever. So it doesn't matter when I want to kind of like make this a little bit simpler. So it doesn't matter what cell this is. So let's just say we're talking about nerve or brain cells. So if a brain cell does not produce ATP, then the brain just doesn't work. The nerves won't make the connection. The nerves will be slower, and therefore fatigue sets in and memory disturbances set in. So we can be talking about cells of the heart. So if the cell themselves are not, of the heart cells are not producing ATP by way of the mitochondria, then what's happening is the heart doesn't function the way it's supposed to. So this will be for every cell, the liver cells, the kidney cells, so the kidneys won't excrete any of the metabolic wastes in our body. So it's extremely important that every single cell of the body is working. And it really comes down to this mitochondria. And it is the source of energy throughout the whole body. So the more cells in the body that are dysfunctional, the more the body begins to break down.
Makes sense.
So when the cells aren't working really well, it usually comes from the bigger things of the poor hormones, the poor blood sugar levels, and all those things. But once you clear that up, we're going to talk about what's going on in the inside of the cell. So we're going to get into that in just a couple minutes and talk about some of the nutrients that are actually needed to be able to do that. Should I go on with it? Okay, I will. So what happens with this is, like, even when we were talking about the nervous system, if the ATP isn't functioning within like your brain, you're gonna you might not be experiencing happy thoughts. So you, like, lots of times people will blame that on like hormones and neurotransmitters and all these other things. But really the reality of it is if you don't provide the nutrients to the cell itself, depression sets in, anxiety sets in, emotional disturbances set in. So lots of times people are given as a nutrient things like neurotransmitters to actually make them back, or an SSRI as a drug, but it might not be the actual neurotransmitter, it might be within the cell. So it's really, really important to understand that when those things begin to break down inside the cell, your health steadily declines. So there's a big movement right now in healthcare as trying to restore the cell itself. But that's never going to work. And there's a lot of nutrients out there that are being promoted, and there's a lot of drugs out there that are being promoted. But none of those will work until you address the hormones, the blood sugar, and those particular things.
sounds like the most basic element that you could get to. Get to a problem that you might be having health-wise.
It is. So we're going to talk about certain processes called like the Krebs cycle and citric acid cycle that we learned about, a little bit in high school biology, but definitely in college if you took any sciences. And we're going to talk about the cycle and why it's really important to supply nutrients to that cycle to allow the body itself to begin to heal itself.
All right, we're speaking with Dr. Bob Oliveira, as we do every Tuesday. We'll have more with Dr. Bob on the program, and we continue here on 98.7 The Coast.
Music.
Hey, what's up? It's Charlie Puth.
On 98.7 The Coast.
All right, so we'll come on right after Charlie Puth for the next one. We should have time.
It's not shutting off.
Yes, we play the hits, but today it's Dr. Bob Oliveira. Tuesdays with Dr. Bob, as we're finishing up our series on 9 hidden secrets why you can't lose weight. This has been a very informative series, Dr. Bob, and today we're breaking it down to the very most basic element in the body.
Yeah, we're talking about cellular health. And so what we were just talking about is the production of ATP, which is really the energy that your body gets, and how mitochondria actually produces that. Well, the two biggest components that they really need is oxygen and glucose. And in that form, and some fats, but in that form, that's where ATP is produced. So what I wanted to talk about right now is what are some of the things that influence your ATP production? What actually, why do some people have more energy than others? Well, some of it really starts in genetics, and primarily the genetics of your mother. And so if your mother has had a lot of health issues, or if she's tired and fatigued, some of those genes will be transferred over to you. Another portion of this is nutritional status. You have to make sure that you're supplying your body with all the nutrients that you need in order to be able to produce energy. Energy, which we're not going to get into, is really kind of a part of this cycle, what we were calling the citric acid cycle. And to be able to go from one step to the next, there's a lot of elements that are actually needed to take you through this cycle. And if it's only missing a couple little elements, from one step to the next, you're never going to produce a whole lot of energy. The first phase of this citric acid cycle will produce only 2 ATP. The second phase during this whole cycle only produces 2. But the end product, the third phase of this, the electron transport, when you start to go through it all, produces 34 ATP. So if you don't have the proper nutrients, you're not going to go through these cycles. Some of the nutrients are simple things like magnesium or manganese or zinc, copper, all these little things. CoQ10 is also a very, very big thing.
What about just citric acid? Don't you get that from fruit juices?
No, this is a citric acid cycle or an energy cycle. Okay. So it's not really related to that. They just call it that. Or we learned it as the Krebs cycle back in the day. Okay. But it's all just the different steps to be able to produce this. But it doesn't have to do with like citric acid or citric juices. The other thing is exercise. Exercise is extremely important. So we know that when we exercise and we exercise with resistance, we can increase muscle size. And when we start to do that, and the reason why it helps with your energy production is that it will increase the size of the muscle cell itself, which there will be an increased production of mitochondria, increase in the number, which means that it can actually produce more ATP. So you need to do resistance training in order to be able to get more energy. It's really important to do that. So lots of times people will start to say, well, why do I have to lift weights to lose weight? Well, as there's more of a demand on your body, as you're increasing the muscle size, there's more ATP production, which means you're going to burn more fat. So you have to do that. Cardiovascular is fine and it's good, but you have to increase it with also some resistance training. Mm-hmm. Also, one of the things that you're going to do is you want to pay attention to your thyroid hormones. We've talked about that earlier in the show. We talk about the influence of hormones and the possibility, or how you use how the hormones help you assist you in losing weight. Thyroid hormone is the most powerful because thyroid hormone, as we discussed earlier, has direct access not only just through the membrane of the cell, but all the way down into the nucleus of the cell. So every single cell in your body, no matter what it is, muscle tissue, heart tissue, every single cell, nervous system tissue, has a direct access of thyroid hormone. That's why getting your thyroid hormone right is so extremely important in your general overall health. And let's face it, lots of times people that are fatigued and starting to lose hair and they are always cold and can't lose weight, lots of times they're blaming it on thyroid hormone. Mm-hmm. And it could be that, but it could also be the cellular response too. So you have to have a system to be able to look at that. So as we talked about in this show, we talked about all these different steps you have to do, from looking at insulin, looking at blood sugar levels, looking at cortisol levels, looking at hormones, looking at your thyroid hormone, looking at your intestinal permeability, looking at your neurotransmitter function. All of those things have to be addressed in order to be healthy. Then we're going right down to the cells. So in our system at Feel Great Innate, when we start to use that at the Feel Great Institute, we have a protocol that looks at each and every one of these. We have a test called organic acid test that looks at all of this Krebs cycle and every single step and every single little mechanism of the either like magnesium, manganese, vitamin C, all these things that are missing in order for you to produce energy. So you have to have a systematic approach all the way through in order to be able to get to the root of this. And it includes blood work, and it includes this organic acid testing, which is the last test that we do because, again, we just want to address the cells at the end. We're looking at stool samples, looking for parasites and a lot of other things that are going on with you. We're looking at hormones, and we're looking at cortisol production. So all of that testing, every bit of that is done in a systematic way to be able to get to the root cause of what your problem is, from the general weight all the way down through the cellular structure. So we're very proud of that program. If anybody is ever interested in actually attending a workshop and learning more about it, where we have PowerPoints and being able to explain that, we're going to have it again this Thursday at 7 o'clock, and you're going to learn. It's free of charge, and you're going to learn in about an hour and 15 minutes everything that we talk about in these shows and the importance of why it's to get a really good thorough workup. And this is not tests your general family physician is going to do. These are specific testing looking for cellular health and get into the root cause of whatever your problems are.
Well, Dr. Bob, this has been a fascinating series, and it can be summarized. Next week, we're going to have a little summary on everything, right?
We are. We're going to cover each and every one of the topics briefly to be able to try to give you a big picture here, because I know trying to describe all this on radio is difficult, and I've tried my best to do that, but I hopefully I'm going to give it like a linear thought process to be able to take you through why we do each and every one of these steps, what are the tests that we do, and hopefully the results that you're going to get.
And all these series, all the different series, this series has all the different 9 parts to it online at 9hiddenweightlossecrets.com.
That's correct, yes.
That's the number 9.
Number 9, Hidden Weight Loss Secrets. So if you go on there, you're going to get each and every one of these shows, and you can listen to them because there is a lot of information here, and I do talk fast. I do understand that. And hopefully next week we'll be able to summarize that. But if you really want to get the big picture, attend one of the workshops you have to call our office at 886-8585 or go on feelgreatinstitute.com, and you will also get a huge summary of what our program is.
Of course, you got to use the area code now, 609-886-8585.
That's true.
Dr. Bob, thanks again for joining us, and next week we'll summarize the whole program, the whole series, when you return on the program.
Thanks for having me on, Phil. I appreciate it.
Great to have you. Dr. Bob Oliveira from Oliveira Chiropractic in Rio Grande. Stay tuned because we've got more of today's hits and yesterday's favorites, plus our 9/11 tribute.